new era for the Indian cricket team. Your thoughts on that?
Obviously, now with no Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, there's a kind of different feel, different look to the side. I would say with Shubman is, he's learning the trade, and it's going to be a tough tour for him. Will have been because he's had time to think about himself, develop his own game, understand his own game, go into the test match knowing exactly how he's going to play. All of a sudden, he's got 10 or 11 other guys that he's got to worry about. That'll be a great challenge for him, I think.
We are building up to the 5-test series between India and England, which gets underway in Leeds on June 20th. And joining me today for a very interesting chat on what the future holds for both teams is former England cricketer and a very popular voice in the world of broadcast now, Nick Knight. Thank you, Nick, for taking time out for us.
Pleasure. Can't wait. I mean, I'm like you. I can't wait for this whole iconic series to get going.
Nick, just first thoughts on start of what is being called a new era for the Indian cricket team. Your thoughts on that? A very inexperienced side led by a young captain. What are your initial thoughts about the makeup of the squad, which is in England right now?
Well, you're absolutely right. Obviously, now with no Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, there's a kind of different feel, different look to the side. I think if just on that point, I think if there's ever a time where in recent past where India would cope with the loss of two such players, I think it's now. I'm very lucky. I work a lot in India, and I get to see some of these young kids that are coming through, and boy, can they play, and how exciting that they are. And when you transition from being sort of young developing talent into international cricketer of note, you look at the developmental stage of where you're at, and some of these guys, Sai Sudarshan for me, is ready to play international cricket now. International test match cricket. Some of these guys now, they're ready to move on. So I think the timing is good. And I think it's going to be a fantastic series. Do I think England start as slight favourites, by the way? Yes, I do.
Absolutely. Exciting brand of cricket. India are probably taking the fans and all the stakeholders into an unknown territory because, as you just mentioned, a new captain, young captain, dare I say a work in progress test batter. Does that have a nice ring to it, or what do you make of the three things coming together? He's young, he's just 25. Shubman Gill has some Gujarat Titans leadership experience, has led India on a couple of occasions in the past, but still work in progress as far as test cricket and batting is concerned.
Yeah, and I think that's well put, and I think it's important that we all remember that. I mean, there are such expectations, and probably none more so in your great country and with cricket, and what you expect of your players and the level that you expect them to play at day in, day out. Realistically, you're absolutely right. He's learning the trade, and it's going to be a tough tour for him. The one thing I would say with Shubman is I think he'll be fine. Tactically, I think he'll be fine leading the side. I think he'll be fine as a captain. The one area which none of us know the answer to really, we'll all have our opinions on it, but none of us really know how he's going to cope with the expectation he puts on himself and dealing with his own time, dealing with his own batting, giving himself time to be the high-class player he is. When you're captain of a side, all of a sudden you have not quite so much time to prepare for yourself, and a lot of his batting skills and his batting will have been because he's had time to think about himself, develop his own game, understand his own game, go into the test match knowing exactly how he's going to play. All of a sudden he's got 10 or 11 other guys that he's got to worry about. That'll be a great challenge for him, I think. Can he kind of, with the help of the coach, can he kind of section off and still have time to concern himself with his own game and how that's going to look in the most important moments? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure he does right now, but he'll find that out as he goes along in this test match series. And I think that's going to be pretty crucial, because every side, and England will do it, you can bet your bottom dollar England will do it. No side is more vulnerable than when its captain is feeling a little under pressure and vulnerable. That has a huge impact on the whole dressing room, right? So England will target Shubman Gill. England will try and knock him over. England will try and make him feel uncomfortable, because they'll feel that then that might have a knock-on effect with those around him. So it's a huge series for Shubman Gill, who, by the way, I am a huge fan of, and have been for a long time. I remember seeing Shubman at 18, 19 in a under-19 World Cup in New Zealand, and I went, wow, this boy can play.
I remember you were there in the commentary box when England had toured India last time around. Another good series for India, completely outplaying England. But that series, if you would remember, because you were doing commentary, that series in particular, Nick, was another series where a lot of questions were asked on Shubman Gill, him coming into bat at number 3, and then there were voices asking for his removal from the test setup. But then he bounced back in fine fashion, had those two brilliant knocks. So was that something which stood out for you as well, the test of his character and how he stood up and rose to the occasion in that series? And was that probably a sign of things to come? And then what you saw in the IPL with Gujarat Titans after a disappointing season last time around, but then a good playoffs finish this time.
The thing about Test match cricket, the thing is, all the stuff you just mentioned there, it tests you. It tests your resilience. It tests your ability to come back. It's not all going to be plain sailing. There are going to be moments where you question yourself. There are going to be moments where everyone questions you. There are going to be moments where you go away and say, how can I do that better? And these are sort of natural thought process that you go in, and your reference to Shubman there, he will have gone through that endless times and will do so more in the future. It's how you bounce back from that. I think his game is in good enough order to do that regularly. The one thing technically, you want to just make sure that his front foot doesn't come too far across a little bit sometimes, so that he's playing at balls outside off stump. He doesn't have to. That will be a major area, I think, where England will. And that's the same with every top order player. But I think the thing with England and being in the top order in English conditions, you can't leave the ball on length. You know, when you play in the Southern Hemisphere, the likes of Australia, South Africa, you can leave that ball on length because the ball's going to be going over the stumps. Here in the UK, it's a little bit more tricky to do that. You can do it sometimes, but often you can't. And so you end up getting drawn into that ball on that off stump line because you're not sure if it's going to go over the stumps or hit the top of off stump, and that is where you have to be really in tune, your head on that top of off stump line, nice and still, so your judgment is really good. I think that's where England would look to move it back in a little bit to Shubman Gill as well, to try and hit those pads. So he's going to be tested technically, absolutely, for sure. Is he up to it? Absolutely, big tick. But it's that ability to be able to focus on his game as well as being the pressures of all that goes with being an Indian Test match captain. I wish him well. I think he's the right man for the job, by the way. I really do. I know there are a number of other options. I think he's the right man for the job. And deep down, you know, obviously, I hope England win the series. But, you know, I really hope Shubman Gill has a series to remember.
Yeah. You just mentioned about not leaving the ball on length, something which every batter should keep in mind when touring this part of the world. But I was speaking to former England captain Graham Gooch yesterday, and he mentioned how this English summer has been very dry in comparison to what it has been in the previous seasons, and that whole obsession with Bazball, dare I say, the wickets turning flatter. Do you reckon it will still hold true that, you know, leaving the ball on length will still not be a good option no matter how dry the summer has been, how flat the wickets get, and it's still the sky above which could dictate what happens down there? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The thing I'd add to that is, I mean, you know, Gucci played some great innings at Headingley, knows conditions there for that first Test match. I mean, I've got a Test match 100 at Headingley. There's a bit of a myth there that Headingley is a green seamer that goes all over the place, that seamers just hit a length and it goes left, it goes right. It is a little bit of a myth, and that's your point that I'm going to lead to, is the weather conditions in the UK at the moment are very good, and I think it's set fair. I mean, I'm down south here in the UK, but I think up north in Headingley, I think it's still pretty set fair. So if that's the case, the pitch is going to be pretty good. I mean, I think we'll have good surfaces. However, you know, then they're still not Southern Hemisphere bounce. It's not like playing in Australia where you can see a length and you can lead. There are pitches in the UK where you can do that, oval perhaps more so than others, and there are pitches, but it's not quite so commonplace. And therefore, as a batter, when you go out there, you're more lining up your head on off stump, and you're more lining up which to play and which to leave based on the fact that it's not going to go over the stumps unless it's really short. So there are just little things there that you have to be aware of when you're playing and trying to set yourself up to be successful in the UK. KL Rahul, I'll go there. KL Rahul did it quite brilliantly. I remember Lord's last time round. His job. I was there. I was working on that test match. I remember sitting behind that amazing media centre and watching KL Rahul leave the ball quite brilliantly outside off stump. And that really, if you're looking at any area as to why he was successful on that day, in its simplest form, it was that.
Yeah. You reckon the weather which you just mentioned and the wickets being good, as you just mentioned, does that give some sort of breathing space to this inexperienced batting lineup which India has right now? By inexperience, I mean, yes, they have a lot of experience playing top flight cricket, the IPL, shorter formats, but a lot of them will be getting their first taste of the English summer in the series. So, better wickets gives them a breathing space as compared to the green carpets which have been rolled out in previous series when India have been to this part of the world.
Yeah, I mean, we're making an assumption that we're going to have good wickets. I think that would be the case. I don't think England would want anything else but good wickets. I mean, the way they play the game, they're going to want the surface. So if we're to assume that that's the case, absolutely. I mean, the other point that I would allude to on the basis of what you've just said is that they've got 2 or 3 warm-up games. I mean, these things like warm-up games are almost like irrelevant in the world game now. Touring is not. These things don't generally happen as much as they used to. So, Carroll's got 100 opening the batting in the last game. He's got a half century. Jaiswal hasn't scored big runs. I think he's got a half century, but he's been out there in the middle in a competitive environment. He's starting to formulate his ideas. He's starting to formulate plans of how he might go about his batting. Now, all these things have got relevance come Headingley June the 20th. So I think you're right. I think if it's a good pitch, I mean, it's looking obviously slightly more inexperienced there with India's top order. They want a good pitch, absolutely. They also, that English bowling lineup is looking a whole lot different to what it might have looked like. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
No Jofra Archer, no Gus Atkinson, no Ollie Stone. There are 4 pacers there. 3 or 4 of them might have found themselves in a frontline 11. So things are looking a little different for India's top order than perhaps they might have done.
I'll slightly take you towards the bowling bit because you touched upon England's bowling composition, what it could have been in an ideal world when the names you mentioned could have been and should have been there. But if you just move towards India now, we have the likes of Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Siraj, Prasidh Krishna, Arshdeep. Then in the spin department, you have Jadeja, Kuldeep and Washington Sundar. As far as the squad composition is concerned, you would say that they are all bases covered. But where does that Bumrah availability issue leaves the makeup of the bowling attack? Because it could well change a lot of dynamics, depending when he sits out or when he opts to sit out, depending on his workload, body and all those things taken into account. So you think that is going to be a bit of a concern for India?
Right, now there's no more impactful bowler in the world. There is, he can change a game just like that. So clearly the obvious answer to that is yes. But I think where you have to go with that is just try and work out what that bowling lineup is going to look like with and without him. Now, for me, I've got quite strong views on this. England, like we all know how England want to play. They're aggressive. They'll take you on. They're much more refined, by the way, than I think they were a couple of years ago with this whole approach. I mean, they'll also sit in. Now, I think they'll be quite respectful of Bumrah when he comes on. I don't think they're going to try and pelt him back over his head for 4 and 6 every ball. So I think they'll be a bit more refined. That they are more refined. So really what the question mark for India's bowling lineup is, how can they take wickets regularly? How can they knock England back? Because that's the only way they're going to stop them from scoring quickly. They bat deep, they bat big, they bat strong. So for me, I think they've got to be really, really clever here, how they line up as a bowling unit. There's obviously going to be a temptation to play one of Nitish and Shardul. One is slightly stronger with the bat, one slightly stronger with the ball. That's fine. But for me, whatever you do with your bowling lineup, it has to have an aggressive intent. It has to be thinking wickets. Don't worry too much about the runs. The runs are going to come against you anyway, right? So I'm not against Arshdeep playing, by the way, because I just like the variation. I like the left armour. I like the fact that when you look at England, they keep going at bowlers. They keep going strong. What does Arshdeep do as a living, day in, day out? He tries to absorb batters coming at him in T20 cricket. He's got good bowling craft for me. He's got a good ability to outthink and think about what the batters are doing. I like that. I think that might hold true here in this series. So I think he's an option. Prasidh Krishna, another one, tall, bouncy bowler. There might be conditions where he might be pretty useful. So Siraj and Bumrah is a given. I think India have got to play sometimes 4 frontline bowlers. It might be that they have to attack with 4 frontline bowlers. If they don't go with 4 frontline bowlers, then maybe Shardul as 3 plus Shardul. So you're thinking about wickets all the time. The danger sometimes with sides when they play in England is that you go, do you know what, we'll try and lengthen that batting lineup a little bit. We'll play someone who's good at 7 and 8 and who might give us a bit of both. I think with this side against England, you've got to attack at all costs. So go with your most likely wicket takers with the ball. And if that means slightly extending your tail a little bit, then I'm afraid that's going to have to be. Last point on this, Kuldeep. Yeah. I think Kuldeep is a major player. I really do think he's a major player.
I was coming to Kuldeep. Yeah.
I think he's a major player. And if this weather stays like this, for me, then take out one of your seamers, maybe play 3, and play Jadeja and Kuldeep. Because Kuldeep, for me, holds so much of a key against England. I think he's one of the bowlers, Bumrah obviously the other. I think Kuldeep would be another where England find it hard. If Kuldeep bowls well, England find it hard to attack him. They want to attack. If they're not quite sure which way the ball's turning, Harry Brook and the like, that they're going to find that a whole lot harder than a seamer who's just bowling it up and down. So I think Kuldeep plays a major role here.
The last time you were doing commentary for an India-England series, Ravichandran Ashwin was still giving it a rip. Rohit Sharma was scoring 100. Virat Kohli was part of the test setup, but he was on a paternity leave due to the birth of his second child. Now, cut to present, 2025, 3 stalwarts are gone from the setup. How do you see that from the standpoint of the series being built up? What kind of hype are you seeing back home?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I think the best answer I can give is there's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of interest because some of the names are slightly different. And it's like, how's this group going to do? Because I can tell you back in the UK, right, that there was a huge amount of interest in the IPL. I mean, huge amount of following, interest. And the guys that follow cricket in this country follow the IPL in many ways. And so they know these guys. They know Shubman Gill inside out. They know Sai Sudarshan. They've seen them play in this great tournament. And so their question's the same as, I guess, many. Is like, well, how are they going to go in a test match series in England when they've not really played that much, some of these guys? You know, they're fresh behind the ears. They've not played that much test match cricket. There's no Kohli. There's no... So there's an intrigue level, I think, about just how this young Indian side, inexperienced Indian side in many ways is going to go. There's a slightly different feel about it. I think that's the best way I can describe it. But huge amount of interest, huge amount of just wanting to see how this is all going to play out. I mean, it is one of the great series. It really is. I hope the weather conditions stay fit and fine and well so that we can get a lot of cricket, because the word I use, the catchphrase I use, as well as others, is entertainment. We're going to be provided with a huge amount of entertainment here. It's going to be jam-packed with entertainment. If India, just to finish off your question, if India can cope with no Rohit, no Ashwin, no Kohli, I think it's now. I think a couple of years ago, I don't think they would have coped as well, because I think some of these guys that are coming in are now ready to take on the mantle. I think a couple of years has made a big difference, and I think this India side can cause England a problem. England start as favourites, but some of these guys are seriously, I mean, we haven't mentioned Sai Sudarshan, I think is a seriously good player.
Yeah. On that note, thank you so much, Nick, for taking out time for us. And as much as you are looking forward to the series, so are we. And I hope to run into you during one of the games in the UK. And thank you so much for taking out time.
Pleasure.